Welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming to what I expect will be a very interesting discussion on what the 10% of startups do to succeed and what the rest of us should avoid so as not to fail. But before we start, let me invite to the stage Henri Bonnet from the Konrad Adenauer Institute to give us a short welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Is this on? Yes. Carlos Orizate, welcome to our panel, which we as Konrad Adenauer Stiftung are organizing tonight. Very happy to see so many people here. My name is Henri Bonnet. I'm the director of this foundation, and we are very happy and proud, my team and I, to support the Panorama of Entrepreneurship, which is going to go on for 2.5 years, and which 2.5 days, and which I know is a very successful event. We are a political foundation from Germany, and we want to support young talent in Greece, for you to take action in politics, in economics, and also in society, because we believe that we need young people to solve our joint challenges in Europe together. And I think for this we need people who have new ideas, new talent, and who want to change something in their environment. Tonight we have brought 2 German entrepreneurs from Germany to the Panorama, and we wanted to introduce you to new developments we have in Germany. You know that you usually associate Germany with football or with cars, but tonight we want to introduce you to German startups, and we have a representative, Claudius Seidel, here tonight for the first panel and another one for a second panel later on. And I hope they will give you a little bit of an impulse into what we do in Germany, and also to motivate you to do something and to get into the action and also try to think and start your own ideas in business and in society. I think this is all for me now. I would like to hand over to Stavros to introduce the guest, and I wish us all a very interesting panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Henri. Okay, so the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung has been very, very supportive of the local entrepreneurial scene, and we've done a few things together in the past. I'm really, really grateful to be here tonight. But we also have a guest with the generous support of the US Embassy, who has generously helped us bring Gigi Wang to Athens tonight, or for the last few days, I think. So let's begin by introducing our panel. Let's begin with Gigi. So Gigi comes from Silicon Valley, from San Francisco, and she is faculty at UC Berkeley. Has done a lot of things in the past. Has been to Greece quite a few times in the last couple of years, helping a number of incubators, a number of startups in Athens. Do you want to just say a few words before I introduce everyone else, Gigi?
Hi, everyone. Do you guys want to be entrepreneurs? Some of you? Okay. So I, in my background, I was an engineer. Then I went into business. Then I started in the world of startups. And I've been involved on the founding team of 6 or 7 startups. Half of them did well. Half of them failed. I lost a lot of money. I made money. I lost money. But life is really good. Okay? And now I teach entrepreneurship at UC Berkeley and also around the world in different areas, like in Amsterdam and in Asia. And I came to Greece first time in March of 2014 to help out at an incubator called Orange Grove. Do you guys know it? It's a great place to get support. Anyways, I love Greece. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys. And I have a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old. So hopefully I understand some of you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gigi. All righty. Let's say hi to Claudius. Claudius comes from Germany and works with EIT. Claudius, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Claudius. I'm working for EIT Digital. EIT stands for European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So basically, I'm a German working in the German ecosystem, but in a European context. So we are an organization. We are present in about 9 countries in Europe and also beyond. In Silicon Valley, we also have an office. So what I did there the last years is to work as a business developer with startups. So I coached startups. I helped them get access to market, get access to finance. I even also had the pleasure to spend some time in the Silicon Valley, learn a little bit the culture there, and try to bring some of it back to the old continent. I'm pretty excited to be here today. Last time I was in Greece was 2009, but only for vacation. But now I'm here for business, so I'm very happy to be here again, and I hope that I can deliver some insights that might help you and prevent many of you of doing maybe some failures or pitfalls that can be circumvented.
We are very pleased that you're here.
Thank you.
We're especially pleased that you're here on business, and that you're still coming on, for pleasure as well. But we do want more and more people to come for business, so that's really great. Let's everybody say hi. Say hi to Γιώργο. Let me pronounce that right. Κλειβοκιώτης from blueground. Blueground. Who knows blueground? Blueground. Fantastic. Good. Okay. So Γιώργος got a long history with startups. He did quite a lot of work in Dubai, but I'll let him tell us more about what he's doing currently.
Hi, everyone. This is my second time in Panorama. I'm really excited to be here. I used to be a student at ASOE in Professor Ladopoulos. So now every time I'm in touch with him and he asks me to participate in one of his events, I always say yes, regardless of where I am. I was put in this panel because I have been an entrepreneur myself in the past. Of a startup that failed. Then I participated in various other startups, some of which have done really well, some not. And about 6 months ago, I got to know the founders and the CEO of blueground. And I thought that this is a fantastic business, a fantastic startup, and a great opportunity for me to come back to Greece. So after living in Dubai for the last 11 years, I came back to Athens to be part of an amazing startup.
Fantastic. I mean, you mentioned that you've been through quite a few failures, and yet you're still here. And let's begin with speaking a little bit about what failure means and how people survive it. You know, do you feel sometimes that failing becomes too much of an obstacle? I mean, accepting that you might have failed on an idea and you have to kind of, well, we spoke a little earlier on with Gigi, and you have to kill the idea and move on? Who wants to take it first? I mean, I'm happy for Gigi. Go ahead.
Who was Thomas Edison? Do you guys know? Someone yell out. I have some candy in my purse. I'll throw it to the person who says something that Thomas Edison invented.
You can take candy from Gigi. She's not a stranger.
Light bulb. Okay, you got it. So Thomas Edison is a very famous... Okay, here. All right.
And immediately we begin with the transactions.
Okay, where are you? Raise your hand. Okay, if you guys, I don't want to kill anybody.
Death by chocolate.
Okay.
All right.
So Thomas Edison, he was an inventor, and he made so many things that didn't work and failed, right? But you know what he said? He said, I have not failed. I've only found 10,000 things that don't work, okay? And how many of you have actually failed an exam, okay? Cell biology, okay? Guess what? When you fail, you go back and you study it. And you know it so much better than if you did it right the first time. So we learn by experimenting and failing. And if you don't do that, you don't really learn. And so when you fail, it gets you to think, what did I do wrong and how do I do it better? And so I'll tell you one last example from failure. I'm learning to play golf. Have you guys played golf? Okay, it's really hard. And here's the thing, is when I play golf and I hit the shot right, I have no idea how I did it, right? But when I hit it wrong, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Did I not stand right? Well, you know, I figure out what I did wrong, I figure out how to do it right, and then I remember. And so look at failure as a chance to learn. You definitely don't want to make the same mistake over and over. Now that's called being dumb, okay? But when you fail at something, do it, and you pick up and you learn from it. And in Silicon Valley, investors would rather invest in an entrepreneur who has failed, because that means that entrepreneur learned, and he learned using someone else's money and not this investor.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I can't say that failure is accepted very, very easily, or as easily as it is, or as it is taught to be in the States. And the European example is very, very different. So let's ask Claudio one of the most difficult questions I think we might put to him. In how do we change that perception that failure is a bad thing, and that failure is not the death of everything?
Very tough question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Indeed.
I'm sorry.
But I think especially also in Germany, we have this as a huge issue that there is a big discussion going on around this topic, that how can we make it better? How can we improve that situation that people don't feel, okay, I failed with that company and then now I will never succeed again in anything. So I think it starts with every one of us. It starts with every one of us how you tackle the issue when talking in a professional way, but also in a private way about failures. For myself, I decided, for example, now I'm being a little bit longer already in the job, so I took part in many job interviews, and I think there's one moment where you can also start to change things. When you see in the curriculum vitae of someone, there's a gap, someone, I don't know, or stopped his studies, or whatever break was in his life that you see on the page there. And I try to encourage those people then to tell me what happened there, what was the reason, what were
the interesting things that you did in that time?
It's not because I want to, I don't know, make you feel bad for it, because it's because I want to know who you are. Because those failures also make you who you are. It's not only the successes that make you the shining person, it's also the failures that bring you to where you are right now. So I think it starts with every one of us. I mean, that's a very general statement, but I think that is someone that everyone can take away from here. And you can apply that in lots of situations, I think.
But then again, I mean, I would extend that a little bit to explore perhaps, and if George would like to comment on this. Failure is tied very much to what the consequences of failure are. And in economies or in countries or in societies where the consequences of failure might be short-term versus long-term or less painful, you have the tendency to be able to try again faster versus being slowed down by the consequences of failing. So George, and forgive me for going in order. I don't think we should do this, and we should just kind of jump in and let's have a more dynamic discussion. I don't want this to be the only order that is right or wrong here is the order of our name and surname. If you notice, it's Messini Stavros, not Stavros Messinis. It's a very Greek thing to do. But George, tell us about what you thought in terms of the consequences of failure, given your experience in another, I think, quite conservative environment would be Dubai, for example, and how that would reflect to the Greek environment, which is very, very conservative in terms of failure.
So, my experience in Dubai is not very different from what I think is here in Greece. I think failure is part of the entrepreneurial process. Most successful entrepreneurs have failed sometimes in their life. If they haven't, they've been extremely lucky. I think there's 3 areas where we can do things differently if we want to make failure not a very painful process. One is the legal aspect. So companies should be allowed to fail without making it detrimental for the owners or the business people. And I think Greece has improved in that area, but I think there's more things to do there. The second is the cultural. So we tend to glorify successful entrepreneurs. And we many times look down on unsuccessful. Well, the unsuccessful ones are a lot more than the successful. And I think society needs to be more accept that people are going to fail, and they're going to fail, and they're going to fail until they succeed. And then the third, I think the entrepreneurs themselves, they need to be a little bit prepared to fail. So it's like when you start doing skiing classes, they'll tell you how to when you're going to drop, because you will fall. How to fall so that you don't hurt yourself. So there are things that possibly mentors can tell entrepreneurs about how to be ready to fail so that they can quickly come back and and go at it again.
Okay, absolutely. So how many of us in the room over here are already entrepreneurs? How many of us want to try entrepreneurship? Wow, very good. And how many of us do not want to try entrepreneurship at all?
And Stavros is amazing because
Two years ago, I don't think the numbers were the same, right?
Yeah, when I was a student 20 years ago, there wouldn't be this session.
Yeah.
It was all about career progression in a large multinational.
So we've done well then in terms of celebrating the successes. Of course.
Add to your
yes,
last
please
question. Is when we teach at Berkeley, we actually, part of our teaching, especially to the undergraduates, is we try and teach them how to fail. We force them to fail so that they can experience it. We force them and they realize it. So there's two things that you guys can do, okay? And the first is to talk about your failure or talk about when you screwed something up. And you'll find out that people won't look down at you. They won't do it. And in fact, if you talk about how you failed, you can talk about it in a way to ask someone help. Like, hey, I tried this and it didn't work. And do you have any ideas what I did wrong and how I can help? So you can turn it into a positive thing, okay? And you will also find that part of the culture teaches you, like, if you fail, everyone's gonna look down at you. And you'll find that most people are like, whew, okay, you're not perfect. You know, you're normal. So that's one thing. The second thing is take smaller risks. If you're afraid to take a big thing and you fail and you lose everything, then take smaller risks. And so if you do fail, you didn't lose that much. And so you can take these little risks to get big rather than taking this one big thing. Okay, so those are two things that you can do to kind of make yourself acclimated and get the positive side of failure.
Just wanted to add to that. Talking about the failures is as I said already, I think very essential. And we have this format in Berlin, and I saw it in other cities as well. I don't know if you have it in Athens. These, pardon my English, but the fuck-up nights. Who
here has been to a fuck-up nights evening?
It's great
Only
fun.
one
You
of
definitely should go there
You
once,
should go
at
to the
least
next one.
once.
The optimist.
Not in my home. All right, we'll talk more about that.
No, just wanted to add to that. I think it's great, and then to make it also in a fun format. I mean, having fun talking about failures. That's, I think, the best way how a human being can handle issues that are a little bit harder to handle. Having fun, laughing about it.
Well, we have a contest of here who screwed up the most.
I definitely screwed up the most. All righty. So we've spoken, I think, almost 20 minutes on the factors of failure and the whole failure issue. Let's talk about success now. And what I'd like us to explore are, on the one hand, the properties of the person or the entrepreneur that succeeds, and also the actions of entrepreneurial, if you like, tries into entrepreneurial ventures that succeed. So I'm happy for you to, again, jump in with either a successful person that did X, Y, Z, or a successful methodology that someone should follow, or successful properties, or what kind of values teams should have, etc. Please go ahead.
I'm
yes.
really curious.
Yeah.
Your company, you were talking about how successful it is.
Great way to begin.
I'm curious about why it succeeded.
Well, it's still in the process of succeeding.
So it's failing less every day.
Yeah. So yes. I'm looking after marketing for blueground. I'm not one of the founders. The company is 5 years old. I became part of blueground about a year ago. So I'll talk from that perspective. I chose to join blueground in some ways as an investor. And I think it's doing really well for a number of reasons. The first one is the people. so it has fantastic leadership, really smart, hardworking people. We've hired a team of really good people, mostly young Greeks that are hungry and well-educated and very adaptable and believed in the vision of the leadership. We've had good investors that joined the founders on a joint journey towards succeeding the vision that blueground has. I think the product is very good. So we found, or the founders found a business that has very good margins and a really large potential market. So I think it's important for startups to get involved in businesses with very good gross margins because times will be tough, and gross margins provide a cushion, and really large markets excite investors and also help you from competition, because in a very, very large market, there's room for more players. Another part is very good timing. So now there is a trend that, so what we do is we rent furnished apartments. We have more than 700 apartments in Athens, Istanbul, Dubai, New York. We rent the apartment from the owner for the long term. We furnish, add services, and then sublet for 1 month or longer. So it's good time for this type of business because more and more young people don't want to buy property. A lot of people generally don't want to invest in stuff. They don't necessarily want to buy their own furniture. So it's a good timing for this business. Also, it's good timing because it's a time that now Greece has funding for new businesses. Yeah, I think.
George, I think you've covered.
Yeah.
You've covered pretty much. So I must admit, a very little bit of research before coming. And some of that research brought up a chart which shows the percentage of the success factors in a percentage term. Number 1, timing. Number 2, team and execution. George spoke about that. Number 3, the idea and truth. Asking why what you're doing is important. The business model, whether this is something that can generate the revenues required to make it a profitable venture. And the last one of all is not the one you'd expect. It's funding. Always be raising money at the right times and never running out of money, because eventually businesses fail, of course, for many, many reasons, but they eventually run out of money. Yeah. So beyond these 5, chief, if you like, overbearing subjects.
So we said the same one.
I think you've covered pretty much all of them.
If there's one more that I think blueground is doing really well is focusing. So the company started by doing a number of experiments on different aspects of the business we're in, but then found one area, and we've been very good at focusing and not doing anything else, and then growing the business around this furnished rental business for 1 month plus. And in my area, which is marketing, again, we experiment, we do a lot of tests, ideally without spending too much money, and then we stick to what works. So focus and saying no is really important for a successful startup, I believe.
I can just confirm that definitely from our experience with working with startups on the European level, helping them to grow on the European level, that often this is the main aspect we try to teach them, that they should really decide which market to go into and focus on that market, because we experienced it sometime that there were startups trying to sell their product after they established their product on their home market. They tried to sell it everywhere. From one moment to the other. They try to start their business in 3-4 different countries at the same time, and they completely got lost. Because for cultural issues, for legal issues, for all these different things that you need to take care of when entering a new market, they just didn't have the resources to fulfill, to really reach that, what they wanted to achieve. So if they were lucky enough, they could scale back, they could scale down and focus on one market, but often they failed completely. So definitely, I absolutely can emphasize that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a story to tell.
or not a story, an analogy, okay? How many guys out there are looking for a girl to get married? It's okay, don't be embarrassed.
Girls, look away.
Okay. How many girls are looking for a husband to get married? Okay, it's okay. It's normal. Okay, so here's this thing. Okay, because it's something a lot of people, relate to. So, I'm just using one gender to make it simple, but it applies to the other one. So, if you're a guy and you're looking to get married, all right? Do you go out there and date 10 girls at the same time? You know, just spread it out and do it like this? Do you recommend a guy does that if he's interested in you getting married? No, because you know why? You spread yourself too thin. You know, just like Claudius said, and you don't do a good job with anybody, and you end up with 10 pissed off women, okay?
So you're saying focus.
So focus, okay? Choose one person that you're really interested in and really focus on them. Make them feel like they're the most wonderful person in the world, whatever. If it doesn't work, then you move on. But I guarantee you, if you're trying to achieve the goal of getting married and you're sitting here spreading yourself thin, trying to, 10 times, 2 times, 3 times, any of you do that? Okay, you're not going to succeed. So focusing is really important to succeed in not just startups, but in all aspects of life. I mean, sometimes you have to juggle more than one thing, but you have to try to minimize it so you can do things well. And you just have to try and optimize it.
It's always very difficult to do that, especially when you're in the early stages where you think, well, if I do focus on one thing and leave the other low-hanging fruit, that could generate me some revenue to get me a little bit more time so that I can...
But that leads to one of the most important skills of people in life, and especially entrepreneurs, is prioritizing. You can have anything, you can't have everything. And so there's just no way, there's not enough time in a day to do everything you want. And so you need to prioritize what are the top things. And that's something that someone taught me early on in my career. Because, I'm Chinese, I'm required to get straight A's, no ifs and buts. Perfection was the only thing allowed. And when I went to work at Exxon as an engineer, I was a project engineer, and I had a list of things like this long. And I felt like I had to do everything perfect. And then my supervisor took me into a room and she said, Gigi, real life is not about getting straight A's. Real life is about learning to prioritize and getting A's on the most important, because it's impossible to get A's on everything in life at the same time. And so that really taught me to prioritize. What are the most important things? And prioritize on those. If you have an exam that's going to be the most important exam in your life, and your friends are also going out to a party, and that's really important, what's more important? And let the party go. Not that I don't want you to have fun, but you understand.
Fantastic. Okay. I mean, absolutely focus, absolutely prioritize, and this leads to, I guess you can sum those up into the trait of being, having relentless drive, being very specific about what you're doing, and solving a problem that is important to you. Because we actually have a question from the crowd on through I think it's Conference, the tool, right? About what idea. I mean, how do you get a great idea, or how do you let go of a great idea? Do you find the 10% that succeed certainly work on something very, very specific and something that makes them personally angry, or is it something generic and they're just looking for an opportunity to jump onto? How would they how would they, is it normally a personal need that they will fulfill? Is it something they will research deeply so they can find, a market opportunity?
I think entrepreneurs that succeed, they succeed because they're really good at identifying a need in the market, identifying a need, an opportunity, a hole, and really understanding the customer who has that need. And then they fill it. And so it just starts with a need and understanding the customer and doing it. So if you look at the iPad, okay, who thinks that Steve Jobs was so creative, he came up with this cool widget that nobody had and everyone loved it? Or if he identified a need and designed something so perfectly to meet that need? So who thinks he addressed a need? Raise your hands. Okay. You guys are right. Steve Jobs was a very insightful person. And so he looked around and everyone in society is getting on internet. You have to get on the internet to, chat with your friends. You got to get on the internet to go shopping. You got to go on the internet to look up information. And so he identified a customer that needed to get on the internet but was having problems. And that was older people. Older people, they're not computer savvy. They're digital immigrants. You guys are digital natives. You grew up with it, okay? There's a really funny video where this grandpa puts the iPad that his granddaughter gave him into the dishwasher. He thought it was a cutting board. Okay, so what Steve Jobs did was he recognized that older people need to get to the internet because there's no ticket offices to buy plane tickets anymore. All the information about medicines are on the internet. So he designed a device that was really user-friendly for older people to get to the internet. And people thought that the iPad was for young people. It's not. It's over $500. How many of you have $500 to spend on a toy? Like none of you, unless you have rich parents, okay? So it's the older people. And after the iPad came out, all my uncles and aunts and my parents who were scared of the internet all got iPads. And my aunt, who is 70, she has 2 iPads and she sleeps with them. Yeah. So he really was smart about identifying a customer who had a need and designing something with huge value and very innovative to address that need.
Maybe to add to that, I think that's one of the most important things an entrepreneur has to know and has to really live up to. But the question was also, I think, about this 10%. What do they do right, or is it just how do they come up with the idea, or is it just like the only way of being successful if someone follows an idea that he has in his mind for years and really burns for realizing it, or is it different? And I would say it's twofold. I got the experience that I met people, entrepreneurs, that were burning for one idea, and they were doing this like perfectly for years, and they were selling the product in a great way. They had this feeling for the need of the customer. And then there were those people called serial entrepreneurs that were just burning for realizing a business idea. Not so much about the idea itself, but they were grasping ideas from everywhere. But they wanted to check them on this fit to the need in society and potential customers, and they just wanted to have this satisfactory feeling of bringing that idea to the street, to the market. So I think it's twofold, and I mean some people are just the one type, and the other are the other type. So I think it's I
think we also find that some of those serial entrepreneurs are normally work in specific fields, or they do complementary things. Seeing as they've gained some experience in one specific sector, and then the one feeds the other.
Yep.
And we have some cases in Greece of some serial entrepreneurs that have actually built a portfolio of companies around one major success, which then they've identified other needs of that same customer base. which is a very, very interesting thing, because once you've understood that customer base, you can fulfill many, many needs of that specific customer.
Of course, they have built up a huge knowledge about this specific market. So, I mean, it would be dumb from them if they would just go to a completely different market just because of, I don't know, they think about it.
And that leads to a perfect thing is, if you guys are developing a product for some market, really get to know your customer, okay? And even for you guys, yeah, okay, I can talk from a mother's standpoint. Is there sometimes that your parents don't understand you and they're trying to help you, but they're trying to make you do something that's not right for you, or they don't understand you, so they're giving you something that, like, is not right? So what your parents need to do is get to know you better. I used to travel a lot and keep bringing toys to my kids until my son finally goes, Mom, I love you. I know you're thinking about me, but I'm 15. Oh. I don't need those little toys, okay? Can you just give me money? So now I don't buy them anything. I just give them money. And so the same with you, is if you want to help someone, don't do it from your perspective. Like, I think you should do this. I think you need this. Do it from their perspective. Really understand them and what do they need, and develop a product for them, okay? So be customer-centric when you're doing stuff. And if you do that, you're much more likely to achieve product market fit. So a lot of companies fail because they have a great idea, but they didn't understand the market. And so they developed something which was good, but not quite good enough because they didn't totally understand the market. And in the end, the customer didn't buy it because they didn't really understand the customer. So understand your customers, understand your boyfriend, understand your girlfriend, understand your parents, please, and give them value.
So you say understand, and you should try to understand your people, team, customers, etc. I want to ask you all, and please, think of someone that we could comment about, if you like. And I don't think this is going to be streamed anywhere, so let's be open and frank. Are successful entrepreneurs, or the 10% that succeed hugely, are they difficult people? We've heard about what a difficult person Steve Jobs was, or we've heard what a difficult person Elon Musk is, a difficult person to work with. Is that something, I'd like us to explore why people can see them as difficult people, and what character traits they might have as successful entrepreneurs that makes them appear as difficult people to their co-workers, but not so much to their customers. Their customers or their crowd, or their tribe, if you like, see them as heroes.
How do you define difficult? And one of my teachers, who was every other student hated him because he was very demanding. Mm-hmm. He was my favorite teacher because he was so demanding, and he really pushed us to learn the stuff and achieve it. And as a result of him being that good, I AP'd out of my first year of chemistry at Stanford because he pushed us that hard. But everyone thought he was evil, and he wasn't. He is that. And I think Steve Jobs is that way. Steve Jobs he pushed for excellence. He pushed for excellence for his customers, and he pushed his team to strive for that excellence. And if the people on his team understood that and succeeded, he rewarded them. There was people who worked with Steve all through his career, but he just didn't have very much patience for people who didn't work hard enough, were subpar, who didn't give it all, who stopped at, oh, that's good enough. No, that's not good enough. It has to be right, or the market won't take it. And so there's a difference between difficult people who push you to success versus difficult people who just like to cut you down and make them feel good. Learn to differentiate between that kind of difficulty. There's some people who will just Like if people criticize you in such a way, oh, you're stupid, that's not actionable. They're just cutting you down. But if people are telling you, well, what you did isn't right because you weren't very clear in your essay about this, and if you use these examples, that will help. Okay? That's constructive. They're giving you something specifically you can work on. And if you can differentiate that, you can find a difference between good difficult and bad difficult.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say, because it's about demand. It's about being demanding and pursuing excellence versus the other side of it. So,
Okay, raise your hands if you think your parents are demanding. They love you.
yeah. And of course, your parents are also could likely be your best business partners ever, at least in the initial stages. All they don't want return on investment. All they want is unconditional love. So use them to the max as quickly as you can and as often as you can.
Can I do something really quick?
Please do.
Since this question is just staring me in the eye. There's a question that someone says, does it mean that 10% of startups succeed because of their failures? Not exactly. It means that 10% of startups succeed because they experiment. And 99% of the time, they are going to fail, but they'll learn and they'll make it better. So they don't succeed because of their failures. They succeed because of what they learn by trying things and oftentimes failing. So whoever is there, hope that answers your question.
Good. Let's take a few questions then. If I can, I should have brought my glasses. Alrighty.
Do you want mine?
Okay. No, it's good. It's good. Okay. So, what do you think has to change in the Greek legal system regarding failing in business? I think the two Greeks can perhaps give we two Greeks can perhaps I think I can give a brief answer to that. I mean, unless
I'd rather you do.
so. I mean, my brief answer to that would be, Greek courts need to make decisions faster, basically, because if you have a difference with a customer or a colleague or a partner, and your case gets stuck in court for years and years and years, very likely you will run out of money, and very likely more people will abuse that system. So that's one thing I would say in terms of the Greek legal, so changing the Greek legal system, is that the Greek courts need to make judgment much faster than they currently do. Good. So
I like the third question, which is asking about how many students or recent graduates, how could they get involved?
What steps can students who want to enter the startup world, if there is a innovative idea, the brain power, the will, the desire, is it difficult today to find funding or sponsors, since the element of trust towards the new and innovative is lacking amongst the older crowd? That is the translation of that question.
So I think it's the best time in modern history for young people in Greece to start a business, because there is now funding for all types of investment rounds, from pre-seed, seed, and everything. There is experienced entrepreneurs. There's a lot of mentors. There's accelerators. There's everything. There's never been an easier time for Greeks, for young people to start a business. And one thing, if you're not ready to get into it tomorrow, one thing that I would recommend is working for a startup. And let me say here, the blueground is growing really fast, and we're always hiring people, and we really like people that want to be entrepreneurs one day.
Is the boss demanding?
It's very demanding. He's very demanding. So if anyone is interested, you can go on our website or talk to me after this session.
Okay.
So working for a startup, I think, is a great
I'd
way
like to
start.
ask, the panel, and perhaps Claudius, do you think that a student should immediately out of university start a startup, or should they join a company first?
Sorry, do you want to start?
Oh, no, you can.
I wouldn't say this in a general way. I mean, I myself also, when I finished my studies, I had fellow students that immediately started their business successfully. I had fellow students that went into a normal job and started a business 2 or 3 years afterwards. So it's type dependent. I think if you're, I mean, that's some sort of a type issue. If you're more risk averse versus risk affinity, if you feel and if you see yourself also that you might first need a little bit more of a security going in a normal job, maybe having then the safety, the security to get a regular income on your bank account, which makes you feel safer and where you can then spend your weekends or your evenings on your idea, on your business idea. Fine. If you then do it after 2 or 3 years, why not? So I think it's not something. And also about that question, even though I can't read it or understand it, but what I understood from your translation, I think also many students or many people, and I think many people here in the room as well, might have a pretty huge expectation towards the financial need you would have to have in the beginning of starting up a business. I think that this is maybe a little bit exaggerated in some way, where you only hear about sums of investments like millions or really huge numbers. When you want to start in the beginning, I mean, you don't need so much. I mean, that's and you can get. We were talking already about the best source of first investment as an entrepreneur. It's your family. It's your family, fools, and friends. How you used to say.
That's exactly how we say it. Yeah.
So, and that's not a lot of money. That's not a huge ton of money. It's what you need in the beginning, and then you have a super ecosystem around which will help you.
So is the biggest barrier then the fear of entering the unknown?
It depends on the person. And so in answer, going on a little bit more about the question, should you do a startup or should you work first? It totally depends on the person and their circumstances. You know, if you have a lot of school loans to pay and you'll get in trouble if you don't, then you need something that makes income. But on a broader perspective is sometimes some of us are looking for the best route in life. Like, here's a decision. Do I take this job? Do I take this job? And you're like...
Where am I most comfortable?
Yeah, and you're so worried about making the right choice. Okay, I'll teach you. Should I date this guy or should I date this guy? You ever have that problem? Okay. The thing is
I never had that problem.
So life is actually not about always right or wrong. It's really a why. You know, you come to an intersection and you go down this way, you go down that way. Okay? I mean, at one point I was on a path of thinking, am I going to be a doctor? Am I going to go to graduate school and become an engineering professor? Okay? And it was like, which is best? Which is best? But I look back now, and there is no best. It's taking a choice and making it the best, you know? And you can have anything, you can't have everything. So don't worry about making the perfect decision. It's learning the most, enjoying the journey, okay? And if it ends up being wrong, you learned it was wrong, and now you learned about a certain area. And so really look at it as a why, and take every chance to explore and learn. Because the more you learn, the better. Like, I'm not teaching engineering, and I'm not a doctor. I'm teaching entrepreneurship, and I love what I do.
George?
So I think there's no rule. Two of the most famous entrepreneurs, Bill Gates and Zuckerberg of Facebook, they're both college dropouts. So they didn't even finish university. If either of them had a Greek parent, they probably wouldn't start their business. Because a Greek parent will tell you, get your degree, go do your military service if you have to, and then we'll talk.
Φταίει η Ελληνίδα μάνα.
The father as well.
I'll translate for our guests. It's the Greek mother's fault.
So I think it's about being ready. There's two good reasons to start immediately. One is, the earlier you start, the more chances you have to fail until you're ready to succeed. And it's easier to fail when you're young than later on in life. Second reason is your cost of living is extremely low in the beginning, and that helps you. It's much easier to start a business than later on in life. On the other hand, it might be better starting, working, because then you get more experience, and that might help you find the right idea or network or get to know your partners and so on. Also, investors like to see logos of companies in the investment decks. They're like, oh, this guy has worked for this. We can trust him with our money. So there's good reasons for both sides, and it really depends on the idea and when you're ready and your appetite for risk.
So who has an appetite for risk in the crowd? Who's not afraid to take risks? Because frankly, what could go wrong? What could go wrong, especially at this age? You have plenty of time ahead of you to fix any mistakes. If I can give a little bit of a personal note, we as a business try to remain as uncomfortable as possible constantly, because that gets us to be creative constantly. And we're always faster than anyone else who's competing with us, and we compete with some very big players, even governments. But, we generally, 5 years later, we're still here, still hungry, still angry, still pirate style, but faster than them, and we enjoy it when they copy us, and that's wonderful.
Well, there's one really important topic that I wanted to cover today, touch upon, and it's the concept of mindset, okay? And, beyond, I think at the very foundation is having the right mindset can really be the difference between whether or not you succeed as an entrepreneur. And we've done a bunch of research at Berkeley on what's the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. And so you can probably guess one of the first ones is someone who is who's not afraid of failure, who's willing to take chances. Another element is someone who appreciates diversity, okay? Because you need a team of different skills and different type of people to do all the things to get a company to succeed. Another element is willingness to go out of your comfort zone, to go into different situations. If you're going to go to different markets, to do that. Another element is confidence, a really sense of confidence that I can do it, okay? And I want to touch upon this confidence element of the mindset is through society, through culture, whatever, the men always score higher on confidence than women, okay? And part of it's cultural in that women are taught to get their validation externally. So you're always asking, did I do it right? Do I look nice? It's external validation. Men have actually been trained or culturally to get their validation internally. Like, I got to think of an idea and I believe it, I'm going to do it. And you saw Steve Jobs doing that. You saw Bill Gates doing that. Okay? So to the women in the audience, I challenge you to go inwards more to get your validation. Don't always go externally, because when you go externally, you're putting that validation in control of someone else. And you want to have control of how you feel about yourself, from yourself. So work on that. Don't be dependent so much on getting someone else to tell you that you did well. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of other things about mindset. One thing we found is we try to teach in such a way that we try to improve the students' innovation and entrepreneurship mindset. Get them to take more risks, get them to value diversity, things like that. You can find more about it at this website called berkeleyinnovationindex.org. You can take a survey and see your innovation index, and you can work on yourself, and 6 months later, see if you improved. One of the places where I scored low when I first took it was an element on resource awareness or resource allocation. And I was like, I've been an entrepreneur 5 times. What the hell? How could I score low? And I thought about it, and the reason is I'm a perfectionist. And because I'm a perfectionist, I tend to do things myself. I have a hard time delegating. And as an entrepreneur, you have to learn to delegate and not do everything yourself. Because you can't grow a big company if you insist on doing everything yourself, and if you insist on everything being perfect, because you can't have everything being perfect. So women, challenge you to look outwards, look inwards for validation, and for everybody, if you're interested, look at the Berkeley Innovation Index.org.
Let's take a few more questions then. Right. How do you let go of an idea? Kill it, shoot it, immediately, as quickly as you can. Let go of it. If you see it's not, I don't know, guys, give us some thoughts around letting go of an idea. What are the indicators where you should immediately let go of an idea?
I think we covered already a little bit about this market validation, about the customer validation. So if you have a great idea, you think you have a great idea, and you talk to your first closest people around you, friends, or just go out on the street, ask somebody, would you buy that, or what do you think about this idea? And you immediately get the reaction, well, or you can feel, okay, there is absolutely not a market for that, so just forget about it. You can write it down in a notebook, and maybe then after 500 years or so, or someone finds that notebook and sees, well, this guy was really clever back at that time, but nobody cared about that. Okay, that would be nice, but you have let go that idea, and you can concentrate and focus on new things.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's more about when should you let go of an idea. And I think you shouldn't let it go too early. You need to, give it your best shot and try all possible angles and see if you need to pivot. And because if it's an idea that started somewhere, from your heart that you wanted to create a business or make it happen, then you shouldn't let it go too fast. You should do everything to make sure you understand the market, the customer, and validate it or not, and then let it go.
But clearly there should be a plan to that, right, of understanding certain measurables, so that,
right.
Because especially if it's something that is close to your heart or your internal kind of desire, you could quite easily get trapped into trying to reform a bad idea.
Can I give a dating analogy?
Please do.
Is when you're really interested in someone and you keep trying and talking to them and this and that, and they're not responding. I'm sure some of you have been through that, and I've been through it too, okay? And you have to let go of it. It's like letting go of an idea, right? And then the same thing is if you look at the analogy of you're in a relationship, but you really like the person, you care about them, but it's not working. You spend your whole time fighting, or you guys don't even like doing the same thing. So it's not fun, okay? You have to make that decision, like what's better for the long run for everybody. So kind of use that as a reference point. But in terms of startups, when do you let go of an idea? Is if you have an idea and you've created a product and no one thinks it's good and no one wants to buy it, and you've tried and tried and tried, then you should let go. Or what you should do is find out why they not like it and modify it. And then I think timing is also really important, and George talked about that, is I worked for a company that, it was a startup. They came out with a product for video conferencing in 1990, okay? And they worked on it for 3 years, and in 3 years, it didn't take. It just didn't take. And they were gonna close down, and the team said, let's go and talk about it. They talked about it and said, this is not working, but is there anything else we can do with our technology? And someone on the team said, there's this thing keeps popping up called internet. And they're like, can we use our technology on the internet? And they looked into it, and they used their technology to develop boxes for telcos to offer internet services. So this is 1990 they started, 93 they were about to go bankrupt. They took their technology, did a new idea, and this company in 1999 was sold to Lucent for $21 billion, okay? Because they took their technology and found a really good need for it and did it. And the cool thing is they gave $1 million or more to every single employee.
Pismataridis, right?
So they were really on the cusp of failing, but instead of totally letting go of their idea, they took what they had and found a need for it and applied it.
So they were stubborn. They didn't stop. They relentlessly,
But with a huge focus on the market and understanding it. And they understood that the timing was not right for video conferencing, but now everyone video conferences.
Final thought from everybody, seeing as we're out of time. George.
Don't be afraid to fail, and
Don't be afraid to clap either.
yeah, don't be afraid to start your business or join a startup. It's going to be an amazing experience either way. So go for it.
Claudius.
Yeah, the same line of reasoning. I think you might be then surprised how many people you will have that will support you, how many people you will find that fight for the same idea, and also go beyond the border of your imagination right now. You will also have to maybe find someone who you didn't know before, but who has a lot more experience in that specific sector, and that might be the perfect fit, the perfect sales guy, whatever you need for your company. So go beyond your borders.
Claudius,
focus.
how can EIT help?
Well, good point. EIT Digital has an own accelerator program. So we focus on, let's say, the scale-up. So the companies that have already found a market, that have already customers, and that want to go into new markets within Europe, but also beyond, as I said already. So if you are a scale-up, if you're a startup that has already, let's say, 3 or 4 years of experience, customers, and you're ready to go into a new European market, feel free to contact me or our colleagues, or my colleagues from the EIT Digital Accelerator. We have an own webpage where you can
We also have a partner in Athens,
we have
fantastic
a local
fantastic
partner,
team.
exactly.
Great competitors of mine foundation. Love them to bits.
Yeah. So, and it's what we do is all about the ecosystem. So come and be part of our ecosystem, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Gigi.
you.
Think about giving value. Just keep looking at ways to give value to potential customers, to give value to all the people around you. How do you give value to your mom? How do you give value to your girlfriend? How do you give value to your friends? How do you give value to partners? A founder named Andrew Mason, founder of Groupon, that was his mindset. He was always looking about how to give value to everybody around him, and Groupon became a $1 billion company in 2 years because he was looking at giving value to everybody around him.
Thank you, everybody. And we hope to see you in business or working for a business on your respective journeys. Thank you very, very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference. We've had a lovely time up here. Thank you. Thank you, the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. Thank you, the US Embassy, for making this happen. Thank you for the invitation.